Hello there. So today I'm going to show you what you can do with your embroidery, and for the purposes of that I'm going to show you using this embroidered rose that I've completed. I did actually do a video showing you how to embroider this rose, which you can find amongst my videos. And so I'm going to show you how to apply an embroidered piece to your clothes, to embellish your clothes, and also how you can make a brooch out of it. So what I've got here is a rather dull looking grey woolly waistcoat, and I want to spruce it up with some nice colourful embroidery. So what I've done is I have added to the rose and embroidered a couple of other flowers, just using exactly the same stitch, which I drew on using water soluble pen and then filled in. And it's a good idea to use this technique of sewing on fabric first and then attaching it to this kind of woolly material, because if you just embroidered straight onto this, you could find, especially using satin stitch, that the material gets all puckered and uneven and doesn't look great when finished. So my plan is I'm going to add these flowers on. But the first thing I need to do is trim this fabric, and so what I'm going to do is I'm taking it up to the embroidery, maybe ½ centimetre away from the edges. I'm going all the way around. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin it in the place that I want it on my top. So I've pinned on my flowers, and you can see that I've pinned on the actual embroidered bits rather than around the edges, because what this does is it anchors your flowers in place but allows for movement around the edges. And to finish this piece, I'm folding the edges under, which will secure it onto my woolly top, but it also allows for nice neat edges. And you'll notice that I've done a few snips as well, and I need to do that in order to be able to fold the fabric, because if I don't, then you can see you can only fold so much. You need to be able to get right into the kind of awkward grooves in order to get your fabric folded right up close to your embroidery. And I find it easiest to stitch and snip as I go around. So I'll start off at this point and I'll sew around, and as I move round I'll snip the angles in order to get close in. And I find this is the easiest way. You could pin it, cut it and pin it, but you find that you get frayed edges and pins get in the way, and personally I find it awkward. So this is the way I do it. And I've got just some pale pink, just cotton thread there, but you could use your embroidery thread if you like. And I'm just using whip stitch. So I'll begin and you can see what I mean. I've anchored my thread in by doing a couple of stitches into the back of the embroidery, and I've just brought my needle right out at the edge of that leaf there, and what I'm doing is I'm just bringing it in to the woolly bit, and I'm taking it through and bringing it out just at the edge of my stitch, my embroidery stitches of the green leaf, and again into the wool and out. And it's quite, I find it quite handy to use my needle to sort of help tuck under the fabric as I go. So I'm just getting the slightest, tiniest bit of the woolly jumper, just tiny little stitches, and folding as I go along. Okay, you can see there. So awkward bit here, and I find it again, like I say, if you use something like a pin to help you tuck in the fabric. This bit's tricky because there are frayed bits there. You just got to do your best to tuck it under. And keep it in position. And if there is the stray thread sticking out, then you can trim that later. So I'm just using the thread, you can see, to anchor fabric. I'm going to fold that out the way. Let's see, find that pin getting in the way. You can go back if there's frayed bits. It's quite fiddly. The trickiest bits are going to be things like your leaves and in between the petals. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and try and secure those loose threads. So I'm just stitching over it. So I want to sew this part of the leaf, but as you can see, if I fold it, I'm going to have trouble getting a good fit right into the corner of that flower there. So this is the point that I'm going to do some snipping here. So I'm just snipping right into the corner of the flower, the orange flower. And what that does is that allows me to tuck the fabric behind that leaf. I'm not quite far enough in. I need really nice sharp scissors here. Now I'm happy with that. So I can sew this leaf now. And here is the finished article. It's all sewn onto my waistcoat, and yeah, I'm really happy with the result. It was really fiddly, I have to say, especially sort of these bits going around the petals. Had it just been the rose, it would have been much easier. And there's little bits, little edges you can see that are just a tiny bit frayed, that were just too fiddly to sew in. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get some fabric glue which will dry clear. I'm just going to dab a few bits on the ends there so that it can go through the wash and there'll be no problems with further fraying. I said I would also show you how to make an embroidery into a brooch. So I've just done a little rose here, which way round, that way round, and I'm going to cut it out again as I did with the first one, and I've got some felt here that I'm going to use for the back. That will give it just a little bit of substance to the brooch. You could actually add a little bit of cardboard So if you've got a template that you've used for your embroidery, if you just cut a slightly smaller version so that you can place in between the embroidery and the felt, and then that'll make it a bit sturdier. So we'll get cutting the fabric first. And you're just basically applying exactly the same principles as I did with sewing the embroidery onto my wee waistcoat. So I'm snipping and sewing as I go along, and rather than cut the felt, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the felt once I've sewn it on. You could cut the felt out using your template that you used for your embroidery, but you find again that the template, the finished article rather, is never the same as the template. It does sort of change shape. That's just the nature of working with fabric. So if you actually just cut out the brooch once you've sewn it on, then you'll get it a better fit. So I'm going to pin that on. Again, just pinning it on in the embroidery part, and I'm going to fold round the edges and sew that on. Here is my embroidered rose that I've tucked in all the edges and sewn the rose onto the felt. And rather than cut the thread, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take it to the middle of the back of the rose, and then I can sew on my brooch blank here. So I can sew that on. But first of all, I'm going to cut this excess felt off, so then I'll have my brooch. So I'm just basically, if you want, you could leave a little border around the rose with the felt showing. I'm going to cut it as close as I'm willing to dare, and it's just to be really careful not to cut the stitches that you've sewn, just like before. There you have it. So I'm going to sew the back of the row. I'm going to sew the brooch blank on, and there we're going to have a little rose brooch.